Hi everyone, how you guys doing? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to Real Board. Today we're going to be talking about one of my all-time absolute favorite movies. It's a staple for 1980s action cinema. It's a staple for action movies in general, and I would go as far as to say the greatest action movie of all time is John McTiernan's 1988 seminal classic, Die Hard. Now, you might be asking yourself why I chose this movie to talk about, why I wanted to really kind of just dive into why this movie is personal to me, what I love about it, and of course, hopefully get your guys' input by the end. And when it comes to Die Hard specifically, this is one that it's always spoken to me in a way that I've just loved, that I've just adored, right? I remember seeing this movie as a kid when I wasn't supposed to. I remember seeing it, I think I saw it on television first, right? I saw it all, I think I saw the edited for television version of it first because I was so young. It wasn't until later on that I was able to get my hands on the VHS in order to very much enjoy it then. And I think I actually saw Die Hard with a Vengeance at my friend's house before I saw Die Hard. And I think that's what kind of led me down the rabbit hole, if I recall correctly. I couldn't tell you the exact first time I saw this movie, but that doesn't really matter because it's been, well, the subsequent times that I've watched it since then that has solidified it not only in the pantheon of my favorite films, but just, I believe, everyone's favorite movies. I mean, every holiday season, it always comes up whether or not this is a Christmas movie. And we're going to talk about that as we get to the end of this particular episode of Real Board. So if you guys do enjoy this, please leave a like, leave a comment, let me know your favorite moments in regards to this movie and what movie you'd like to see me talk about next, because I'm always looking for ways to expand the channel. I'm always looking for ways to talk about these movies, movies that not only I love, but you might love, and then just kind of keep something going that's more on the good time sort of things. Anyway, so I love this movie because it is the greatest action movie ever made. It is the greatest. Some might argue the greatest American action movie ever made. Fine, if you want to say like there's better action films in other countries. Obviously, the stuff that John Woo has done in China has been better. The stuff you might see coming out of like The Raid in Indonesia, I mean, just on a purely technical level, obviously is better. But none of those movies exist without Die Hard, kind of being a bit of a trailblazer. John McTiernan nailed this movie during what I would argue is probably like the finest moments of John McTiernan's career, which of course came around the time of Predator. And he also did The Hunt for Red October. He did Die Hard with a Vengeance. He didn't do Die Hard 2. That was Rennie Harlin. We might talk about that at some point in time because it's still an okay movie. Not as good as this one by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a pretty good movie. Now, if you guys want to know, if you guys don't know already, the plot of the film is very straightforward. It's very straightforward. It is, all about NYPD detective, hothead, stubborn detective John McClane traveling to Los Angeles to reconnect with his estranged wife on Christmas Eve at Nakatomi Plaza. It gets taken over by thieves led by Hans Gruber, played wonderfully by Alan Rickman, and he is the one person who can stop them from actually, enacting their plan and killing everyone. Now, the funny thing is the movie itself, and I should do a patio commentary on this because it was actually based on a 1979 novel called Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. And it is basically, if anything, a sequel. It was originally designed as a sequel to the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Commando. And that is another fantastic, amazing movie. But this one was meant to be a sequel to that. And again, it's kind of gone around, for a couple years on that front. But it ended up being retooled and they brought in Bruce Willis. And this was Bruce Willis's first major action role. Before then, it's not his first major movie. I think before then he was in that one with Kim Basinger. It was like, what was it? Like Mystery Date or something like that. It was something along those lines. And he was coming off of Moonlighting, where he was more of a comedic actor. And they were a little bit worried about putting him in this position. And the thing is no, he brought it. He brought the hard-headedness. He brought the stubbornness. And he brought like the pure piss and vinegar of a guy who just is having the worst day, but understands that he still has a job to do and he still has a wife to save. And so, of course, that is one of the reasons why this movie works in the way that it does. It's a very simple, straightforward plot. A cop goes to reconnect with his estranged wife. Obviously, we know that when it comes to police, divorces are very high. In fact, you will probably hear that most officers are on like their second or third marriage because of the stress of the job. So this is something that does kind of tie into that, even though you may not know it. Now you do. And then there's, a complete a robbery, a terrorist, not even really a terrorist takeover. They're framed as terrorists, but they're just simple bank robbers. That's what Hans Gruber is doing. They play up the terrorist role as part of that over-the-top scheme to throw everybody off while they're just trying to get the bearer bonds so they can be sitting on a beach earning 10%. Obviously, that was the goal, was to to mess with everybody. And they are very effective at that because of the way that the LAPD and also law enforcement in general responds to these kind of hostage situations and those that have terrorist leanings, at least supposedly. Now, when it comes to the actors, like I said, Bruce Willis was great as John McClane. He was wonderful. Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber, I still think to this day is like the pinnacle 1980s villain. And even though he kind of hammed it up a little bit in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, still his villain work is fantastic. And I loved how he was Hans Gruber here, especially at the end when he dies. That look of actual fear on his face because they dropped him early without telling him they were going to drop him early. And that scared him. So that look as he is falling is something that absolutely is real. It's a real look of fear. And I love that little moment. I mean, it's definitely a dick move. Don't get me wrong. And if I was Alan Rickman, I would be like super, super, super pissed off. But the guy seems to love things for the art. So you might as well make it work to the best of your ability, and you just kind of live and you grin and bear it after a while because it's for the profession, it's for the craft, And like 11 years later, he was in Galaxy Quest complaining about how he played Shakespeare in the park, and now he's reduced to playing an alien in a sci-fi movie. And this is also before Harry Potter, and rest in peace, Severus Snape and all that stuff. Bonnie Bedelia as Holly McClane. I wasn't, my only real experience with Bonnie Bedelia as an actor was in Die Hard and Die Hard 2. That was really about it. I know she's been in other things. I know that. But like as just an 80s kid and a 90s kid, having grown up in that era, I just know her from those movies. And it's funny how in Die Hard 2, she's like, why does this keep happening to us? And by the time we get to Die Hard 3, she's already said like, nope, I'm done. I've dipped out of this franchise. And maybe one day we'll get Die Hard 6 and then we'll be able to see the McClanes back together as a whole. But I'm going to talk about that down in the legacy factor of this, or part of this video. Of course, Reginald VelJohnson. Who doesn't love Reginald VelJohnson? Because I don't mean to undermine Reginald VelJohnson's career. But growing up, I had TGIF on ABC, which meant I had Family Matters, which means I had Carl Winslow as kind of like my Friday night dad. And I love Carl Winslow. So seeing him play a cop in Los Angeles whose wife is pregnant and all he wants to do is get Twinkies and go home, and his entire night changing, and him being welcomed to the party by a body falling on the squad car and then a hail of bullets, definitely, it's something you can't like disconnect in my mind. So I always see him as Carl Winslow in the first Die Hard, and of course the very small cameo in Die Hard 2. Again, I hope in Die Hard 6, if they ever get around to making it, they bring everybody back. It's like in, what Netflix is doing Beverly Hills Cop 4. And I'm like, bring back Paul Reiser, you sons of bitches. Get the gang back together. Why not? You're already spending the money. But for me, I think probably one of the best actors in the movie, or I should say one of my more favorite, but not for like the right reasons, was always William Atherton as the bad guy. And he wasn't even really the bad guy. He's a dick. But he always ends up being a dick in like all of the movies he's in. Ghostbusters. Biodome. Every time you would see William Atherton's name pop up in one of these movies. Oh, hell, I'm forgetting about Die Hard 2, where he was an even bigger dick. No, he didn't focus on going and trying to interview the kids or threatening INS on the nanny. But he still was a huge dick in Die Hard 2. And that was kind of another funny thing that they kind of kept over from the first Die Hard, was the fact that this scummy ass reporter would be on the same plane with Holly McClane while the airport was being taken over. Again, it's such a weird thing, but you know what? I always kind of liked it. And I just like seeing William Atherton play an asshole. And I know he's still alive. And I haven't seen him in anything in a long time, but I would love it if they would get William Atherton back for something else. Again, give me Die Hard 6, bring the gang back together. You know, definitely won't have any of the Grubers because they're dead, but it is what it is on that one. Now, when it comes to cool moments in this movie, there are a number of them. Obviously, there is the I have a machine gun now, ho, ho, ho. That's a great moment. There's the great moment, again, as I previously mentioned, when McClane throws the body out the window, it lands on the squad car, and he starts opening fire. Welcome to the party, pal. You know, and like those moments, like when he's talking with Alan Rickman, with Hans Gruber, and there's having that conversation, and Hans gets the gun, but McClane had figured it out, right? Like there's that moment's fantastic. Obviously, Argyle, when he crashes the limo and stops Theo from getting away, that was always cool. Got to show Argyle some love. Argyle never gets enough love. Argyle was great. I mean, and then, of course, there's like the pinnacle moments of him tying the fire hose to himself and jumping off the rooftop. The swinging, you know, shooting of the window and the swinging in. The bloody feet, him getting tore up to hell and back. The iconic scene inside of the vent, which is, by the way, completely not realistic. Those vents are very tiny, and Bruce Willis would not fit, but who cares? It's movie magic. I mean, same with him, like tying the fire hose around him and jumping off the building as it's being, you know, blown up by, by the C4 explosives and everything else. It's just pretty funny. And then, of course, there's the famous yippee-ki-yay motherfucker line. And that line is still, to this day, I would argue, probably the most iconic movie line out of the 1980s. And I know people out there might disparage that. They might fight me back on that one. There's a ton of other great lines in movies, but yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, it indicates one thing, and you wait for it in every one of the 5 Die Hard movies. Now, granted, you know, like it was shoehorned in, I feel, in a couple of the sequels, but I did like how it was used in Die Hard 2. It just seemed like the right time to kind of say it again, you know? So I'm very much okay with that. But that line is still pretty iconic, and it's very amazing, and it always works out well when you watch the movie. There are so many great moments, like the little moment when like they're waiting for the SWAT team to enter, and the one guy reaches over and he grabs like a Nestle bar from the little cafeteria, the little snack shack, because he's hungry. Like little moments like that are just kind of funny and out of the way. Or like when you had Agents Johnson and Johnson, no relation. I mean, you know, like dick-ass Robert Davey showing up again in a movie like this. And then, of course, like the FBI guys just get taken out in a helicopter explosion because it's kind of funny. The part when like they drop the C4 with the computer monitor down the elevator shaft and it just detonates the bottom floor like that, or one of the floors, like that was great. You know, I mean, there's so many things in the movie that are just like iconic for it being Nakatomi Plaza. So much so that even in, what was it, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like Die Hard being Jake Peralta's favorite movie is a running gag throughout the show. And even in one, I think it's season like 5 or season 6, they go to LA and they actually stop off at Nakatomi Plaza so he can live out his Die Hard moment, so to speak. That's one of the reasons why this movie lives on. And again, that kind of ties into like the legacy thing. But when we talk about the movie as a whole, like I said, it always boils down to the whole concept of whether or not it is a Christmas movie. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is Die Hard something that you watch with your family around the holidays, especially, you know, even young kids? Is it a violent movie? Yeah, it's a violent movie. John McTiernan knew how to bring it. Watch Predator. My God. He knows how to make violent movies. There's a little bit of nudity in the movie, like a little bit of nudity on like a calendar or a poster on the wall that as John is running past it at one point, and when he's like in the maintenance area, he kind of like, you know, kisses the boobs as he runs by. It was very nonchalant. It was kind of like really like he's just kissing him for luck sort of thing. It's a very weird little moment, but I really liked it. And the movie, yeah, it takes place on Christmas Eve in Los Angeles. Yeah, you don't see a lot of Christmas decorations outside of the party on the 31st floor, but that's okay. That's fine. It's still like this, to me, Die Hard is more of a Christmas movie than A Christmas Story or National Lampoon's Vacation. Like that is Die Hard. It ranks higher on that list. And it's one that as my kids get older, and they're young right now, so I'm not going to show it to them right now, but the older they get, the more I'm going to want to sit there and really kind of like discuss this with them and show it to them. I'm looking forward to when I can show them all the great 80s action films. And believe me, I'm going to start with Die Hard. Now, when we talk about the film's legacy, when we talk about where it's at, you know, over 30 years later, almost 35 years later, coming up on the next couple of years, the question becomes, what is its legacy? Is this a movie that is defined on its own merit, or is this a movie that is defined by its sequels? And that's a bit of a tough question, to be honest with you. It's a bit of a tough question. The reason why I think it's very much going to be able to hold on to its own merits is because you can watch this movie and you can be so happy with this movie, and you don't need to watch any of the other films if you don't want to. I would recommend, if anything, Die Hard 3, because it is basically a direct sequel, even though Die Hard 2 is a direct sequel to this. Die Hard 4 is not terrible. Die Hard 5, it's been 8 years since that movie came out. No one talks about that movie. I might have to do a real board. I have to go back and watch it again and then try to pull out what I think are going to be the best elements of that. If you guys want me to do that, I will do it. We will talk about it. I think that will be okay. And that being said, I think like really there's like the legacy of the movie outweighs its sequels. Any of the crappiness that has come after this original, it doesn't make it any worse. And honestly, in most movies' cases, if the original is very good and the prequels suck, it never delineates from the original. Look at Jaws. The first Jaws is amazing. Second, third, I think like there's been what, Jaws, 4 of them, 5 of them, something like that. I've never seen them. They never take away from that original. I've seen Jaws 2 and Jaws 3, but like they never take away from the original. Yeah, they're dumb, they're stupid, but they never take away. And so, because you can never take away, the movie exists as it exists, and it's one that fans will always go back to, they will always love, and they will always want to dive into. And this is one of the reasons why Die Hard is a timeless, timeless classic. It is the best Christmas movie, hands down. I'm sorry, I'm going to put it above It's a Wonderful Life. I'm going to put it above Muppets Christmas Carol. I'm going to put it above even The Ref, which I love The Ref. If you've never seen that Dennis Leary movie, that movie is fantastic. It's a great Christmas film, but again, a story for another day. But let me ask you guys this. What are your favorite moments in Die Hard? How does this movie resonate with you? What is it about it that you love over 30 years later? And how often do you go back to it? And do you want to see another one? This was, again, something I've just been wanting to do, more of these real board talking about these films. I want to hear your thoughts about them. Let me know down in the comment section. We'll talk again soon. Have yourself a great day, everybody, and peace out.